If you've been around for more than a minute on my channel, you've definitely heard me talk about Pleasant Hill Grain. And the number one comment that I receive in reply to Pleasant Hill Grain videos is, what about Azure Standard for such and such reasons? So in this video, we're going to be pulling back the curtain and actually doing a deep dive into comparing between Pleasant Hill Grain and Azure Standard. We're going to be comparing these two companies side by side so that you, my wonderful viewers, can make a truly informed decision. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia. On this channel, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. Okay, so Pleasant Hill Grain versus Azure Standard. These are the two big ones that I constantly see being compared on this channel. Now, full disclosure, in case you're not aware, I'm an affiliate with both Pleasant Hill Grain and Azure Standard. So no matter who you shop with, I do get some sort of kickback from them. Pleasant Hill Grain has also been a sponsor for Grains and Grit as well. This is not a sponsored video. I am still affiliates with both of these companies, and I will be still giving you my brutally honest opinion and experience with these two companies. So let the battle of the grains begin. Here is what we are going to be comparing side by side with Pleasant Hill Grain and Azure Standard. First of all, we are only going to be comparing their grains. There are differences with Azure Standard. Azure Standard is more of like an online grocery store, where Pleasant Hill Grain has grains and other food, but they also have kitchen tools, grain mills, mixers, other things as well. So we're just going to be focusing on the grains. First of all, we're going to talk about what grains they offer. We're going to talk about pricing, how the grains are packaged, grain cleanliness and quality, where their grains come from, your ordering experience / how you actually get your grains, my own personal experience with each of these companies, including their customer service, and then finally deciding who wins the battle of the grains. So first of all, let's just talk about what grains each company offers. And good news, either company offers a pretty wide selection of grains. I do think Azure Standard offers a little bit more variety. For example, they have a few varieties of popcorn, where Pleasant Hill Grains offer popcorn, but I think they only have like one variety. But as far as your basic grains, especially hard red, hard white, soft white, they both offer it. They also both offer organic grains and also conventional, or at least non-organic grains that aren't labeled as organic. Both companies offer those. Both companies also sell multiple types of dried beans, ancient grains, etc. So as far as what grains are offered, pretty similar. Number two, let's get to the price comparison. And this is one of the biggest differences that I think people notice right off the bat. Because yes, Pleasant Hill Grain is more on the higher end when it comes to grains, where Azure Standard is definitely on the cheaper side. I would say as far as ordering grains online, Azure Standard is the cheapest available. The only time I've seen them cheaper is if you're buying them yourself locally. However, I caution you to not go by price alone. There are many factors involved, and the rest of these comparisons are going to will always go back and contribute to the price of the grains that you are purchasing. So keep that in mind. But bottom line, Azure Standard definitely is the cheapest when it comes to grains. Pleasant Hill Grain is higher priced. Third comparison, how the grains are packaged. Pleasant Hill Grain only offers grains right now in, at least in bulk. They're in food grade safe buckets. They generally come in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers in sealed food grade safe buckets. You can reuse the airtight lid as well. But generally speaking, they're only in buckets. They do offer a 1 pound sample size for each grain. Usually you have to go to that grain, like the super pale, so that you're buying the bucket, scroll down, and you'll usually see down there where you can buy 1 pound of grains if you want to sample for yourself. So it's either that 1 pound sample, or you're buying the big 5 or 6 gallon bucket of the grains. Contrast to Azure Standard, that on the opposite end only sells their grains in bags. Now, the sizes that they offer does generally vary based on the grain, but usually speaking, they offer 5-pound bags. Sometimes you can get a pack of 3 33-ounce bags, 25-pound bags, and a lot of their grains do offer 50-pound bags, but not all of them. What does this mean as far as grains, and why is how they're packaged important? First of all, with Pleasant Hill grain coming in the buckets, the Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, you receive it and you don't have to do anything with it. I mean, you're good to go. They definitely ship more securely, being in buckets. Even if the box that it comes in is a little worse for wear, your grains are going to be safe. Contrast to Azure Standard, with grains coming in bags, whenever you receive them, you immediately, or as soon as possible, need to process them, because you do not want to keep your grains in bags because they are susceptible to moisture and pests. So you're going to have to take the time to transfer it into a safe container that keeps out pests and moistures. And then depending on what else you want to do, you may also want to store them in Mylar bags, throw in oxygen absorbers, those extra steps that you may want to do. As far as shipping goes, I have seen on occasion with the bags that Azure shipped in, occasionally a bag will bust in shipping. Not a lot of fun with that. I do not see this often, but I have seen it before because it's in a bag, not a plastic bucket. Oh, hey, speaking of the way that things are packaged, if you like my shirt, if you like my mug, you may have seen an apron I've worn called I Need Bread in a few videos. All of these are part of the Grains and Grit merch store, and if you haven't checked it out, you're definitely missing out. If you are a dedicated grainy like me, then you probably want to show your love for real whole grains to the world. By shopping in my merch store, you are supporting Grains and Grit and getting some really cool swag for yourself. So be sure to go to grainsandgrit.com/merch for your awesome grainy gear as well. Next comparison that we are doing is, of course, the big one for many people, and that is the grain cleanliness and quality. I will say hands down with Pleasant Hill grain, they are the cleanest grains that I have ever received. I have received plenty of clean grains from plenty of companies, but Pleasant Hill grain definitely goes above and beyond when it comes to their grains. According to their website, their grains are triple cleaned. And as I mentioned earlier, in their super pails, they are shipped in food grade, airtight sealed buckets, with the grains in vacuum sealed Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers in. So not only do they clean their grains very well, but they package them in a way to keep them clean and safe. And I've never seen anything, I don't really notice any sort of dust, chaff, nothing like that in their grains. I've never seen it. Let's compare that to Azure Standard. And honestly, this one I've seen is slightly up for debate, sort of. Now, according to Azure Standard's website, they state that Azure Market products that are repackaged by Azure for your convenience are packaged in a facility that meets the Global Food Safety Initiative Safe Quality Food Standards, which includes an approved allergen control program. So that's what they state on their website. I could not see where they were triple cleaned the way that Pleasant Hill grain does it. And the biggest thing with Azure Standard is basically what other people say, and my own experience as well. I have noticed lately a lot of people on Facebook groups and whatnot talking about their Azure grains not being very clean. They will have maybe some chaff in them, some wheat stalks. They're considerably more dusty than other grains. And these are things that I've experienced myself. But anytime I see people talk about the cleanliness of grains, they're usually talking about Azure Standard and questioning the cleanliness of the grains. Very common thing I hear with Azure Standard grains is that people say that they are very dusty, which is understandable. It's not dirt. I do think it's just more like wheat type dust, where I have not really seen that with Pleasant Hill grains. The only time I see any sort of that dust is usually at the very bottom of the bucket, and it's usually very, very little. Now, as far as, baking, the quality of the grains, whether I'm buying hard red from Azure Standard or Pleasant Hill grain, it's a hard red wheat, bakes the same. So as far as the baking quality, I've never really noticed a difference between the two. Next up, where the grains come from. First off, with Pleasant Hill grain. Pleasant Hill grain, they are not farmers, they are distributors. And where their grains come from does vary based on the grain, but they have made it very clear on their website that they do not source any of their grains from China. And lately they've also been clarifying that they are also not purchasing any grains from Russia or the Ukraine as well. Now, the way to know where their grains come from is you actually have to select the specific grain, scroll down, and it usually tells you the origin somewhere on that page of where the grains are. And I looked through many grains of Pleasant Hill grain. Pretty much all of them, from what I can tell, are from the US. The one exception that I found was quinoa, which they do state is imported. They do not state where it's imported from. I'm going to assume it is South America because quinoa is a native South American grain. As far as Azure Standard goes, Azure Standard are farmers as well as distributors. As far as where they source their grains from, that really depends from the grain. They definitely go out of the US a lot more with certain grains. And again, you can see it when you click on the grain, scroll down, and they do disclose where their grains come from. And many of their grains I noticed were not from the United States. Their grains like spelt they stated was from Canada. Quinoa, like Pleasant Hill grain, they stated comes from Peru, Bolivia, the USA, and Canada, depending on where. Einkorn comes from the USA and Canada. Amaranth is from Bolivia and India. Their oat groats are from Canada. Thai jasmine rice is from Thailand, which is probably what makes it Thai jasmine rice, so that one's understandable. It really just all depends. And then some of their grains, they grow themselves, like their soft white wheat. And they do specify which ones those are. So why does it matter where the grains come from? Two reasons that I can see. One is some people, it is very important for them to purchase items from the United States. They want to support the United States farmers. Of course, both of these companies are USA-based companies, so you already have that covered. But the second biggest reason that I see where this can be a big issue, and we kind of saw that with 2020, 2021, is it's definitely going to show the potential for supply chain issues. I'm sure we all remember all the cargo ships that were out in the Pacific Ocean for forever. That is a lot of the reasons why Azure Standard was out of a lot of their products, because they bring more from overseas than Pleasant Hill grain does. So that is something that you may want to consider. Ordering experience and how you get your grains that you order. And this right here is the biggest difference between Pleasant Hill grain and Azure Standard. First of all, Pleasant Hill grain, you're shopping online. If you know how to shop online and receive things at your shipping address, that's pretty much what you get with Pleasant Hill grain. If you order it, you will get it. Now, some things may be on back order, but they do let you know about that. And at the top of their website, they always tell you every single day what orders they are shipping that day. So you generally know how, if they're backed up in their shipping, you're going to kind of know that in advance. Otherwise, you will place your order online, and usually in about a week, I'm getting my order and it's shipped straight to my house, and it's wonderful. Compared to Azure Standard, completely different ballgame. Azure Standard, the way most people do it is you sign up for a drop. Azure Standard is a co-op. It is free to sign up for. You sign up for a drop, and then you place your order on Azure's website by a certain cutoff date, which they always tell you at the very top of the page. You place your order by them, and once the order cutoff date is placed, and this is done once a month, the delivery is once a month, you have to place your order by your cutoff date. If you miss your cutoff date, oh well, you have to wait until next month. After your order is placed, they will then tell you when it is being shipped. And this is something that has changed in the past several months. They used to give you, when placing your order, a specific time and date of when you would be receiving your order. They no longer do that. They just say the week of. So it could be anywhere during that week that your order comes. And when your order comes, it is at a specific drop location. So that may be 5 minutes from your house. It may be an hour from your house. And you have to go pick up your order at a set time. So you have to kind of wait to receive all your items, you load it up in your vehicle, and you head home. Also, your order is not guaranteed to be shipped with Azure Standard. They generally will let you know if they're low in stock, or definitely if something is out of stock with Azure Standard. So that will give you an idea. But just because you ordered the item from Azure does not mean it is shipped. You are not charged for your order until your order has shipped, but you also do not know what you're getting until your order has shipped. And they send you an email letting you know what shipped and what didn't. Now, Azure Standard does have the ability for you to just order online to ship to your house, but Wowza's shipping will be probably twice as much as your order. It's extremely expensive. They're charging you full price. That's why most people go with their drops. And I think if you are local, you can just pick up from Azure Standard locally. That's the biggest difference with Azure, and it's a huge, huge factor that you need to keep in mind. Now, my personal experience with these companies. With Pleasant Hill Grain, it truly has been pleasant. I have had no issues. I love the fact that I have my grains shipped to my house. I know that I'm getting a great quality product. They've always packaged everything very well, so it's shipped as safe as possible. Only a couple of times have I had an issue with payment, and Pleasant Hill Grain, instead of just canceling out the order, they contacted me directly and even offered to be on a three-way call with my bank to make sure everything was sorted out, and everything was. And so I thought that was an extra step for them. Compared to Pleasant Hill Grain experience with Azure Standard. With Azure Standard, I've been ordering from them since I came to Florida, which is about 8 years. And before 2020, things were very different. Our driver was always early. I generally got my order, things like that. Compared to since 2020, my experience with Azure has been the driver being anywhere from 1 to 3 hours late for the drop times changing. Now they don't give a specific date and time when you're placing your order for the drop. It's now the week of whatever. So that can definitely be an issue as far as scheduling goes, because I don't know when they're coming to drop off my order until after I've already placed the order. So an example of this is one time, this was about 6 months ago, I was part of a very large drop at the time, and I left the house. Our driver ended up being about 3 hours late that time, and where the drop was at, I think about 6:30 or 7. That's when pickup time was. I didn't get home until 11 p.m. because the driver was just that late. As far as my experience goes with Pleasant Hill Grain and Azure, both of them, I've never had any issues with their customer service. It's possible that the drop experience is different for you because there's drops all over the United States, and this could be a vastly different experience for you. I'm just talking about my own experience as of 2020. So for me, between the two companies, I do have to consider with Azure Standard, I may be spending less money, but I usually am spending more time that it takes to go pick up my order. I pretty much count on them being late, those type of things. But with Pleasant Hill Grain, more money is spent, but I have the convenience of it's shipped straight to my house, and I don't have to go anywhere. So who wins the battle of the grains? And really, that depends. I would actually like to hear your thoughts in the comments below, because what is important to you might not be important to me, and vice versa. If you're judging based on price alone, and in that case, Azure Standard definitely wins. If you're comparing other things like the cleanliness of your grains, you want to make sure your grains are sourced from the United States. You want the convenience and ease of receiving your order, then hands down, Pleasant Hill Grain definitely wins as well. So let me know in the comments below. I would like to see this battle duked out. Let me know if your experience with each company, because that helps other people out as well. Remember that the links to shop with either company will be in the description box below, as well as links to my merch store so you can get some awesome grainy gear as well. As always, I hope this video was helpful and that y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.